All right, let's begin the practice today. Standing, we're going to move in and out of standing postures and stretches. Reach your arms up, big inhale. Exhale, fold Uttanasana. And take a few moments here, right away, getting into the movement and the stretch in the legs. Sway side to side. Move your head and shoulders around. And move your weight around so you can bend your knees and start to sit down a little bit. Walk your hands forward slightly. That'll help take the weight forward. Half lift, inhale. And exhale, fold back in. Grab your elbows, frame your arms, and hang here as you gently press your legs to straight. Push down into your heels, the balls of your feet, and spread out your toes. And really let your weight fall down into your head and the toe end of your mat. All right, we're going to come back into downward facing dog. Plant your palms, step 1 foot back at a time. Lift your hips, and you could bend your knees here and lift your heels to help ease your legs into the stretch. You can feel the strength in the front of your thighs. Front thighs engage, kneecaps lift. Notice the balance weight support between your 2 hands and your 2 feet from front to back, as well as right to left. Next, take your knees to the floor and keep your knees and hips lined up as you walk your arms to the front of your mat so you can take your chest and your chin or maybe your forehead to the mat. You're actively stretching your arms forward so your triceps are engaged. And feel your hips stacked right over those knees. Again, if this is too intense on your chin, take it to your forehead. You could even put a block under your chest or an extra little cushion. And we'll come forward onto your elbows, Sphinx pose. So come down to your hips. Line your elbows directly under your shoulders so that as you press into your forearms and your palms, you're pressing down, but you're also kind of pulling your chest through as if you could pull your mat back. Press your toes back, engage your thighs so your knees lift, and lift your chin, lift your chest, lift your eyes, look up to the ceiling. Inhale from your belly and exhale down with your forehead, hands to your mat next to your waist, and then inhale, cobra. Lifting a little higher than you were in Sphinx pose, so still keeping your thighs on the floor though. Exhale, lower down. And then inhale, roll back up, Bhujangasana, cobra, point those big toes back, engage your thighs, lift your kneecaps. And exhale, roll back down. One more here. Lift, roll your shoulders and head up, chest through your shoulders. We'll move back into downward facing dog. Come up over your knees, tuck your toes under, and again, press equally and evenly into both hands and both feet. Downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Big inhale and exhale. Sigh it out if it feels good to sigh it out. And keep your breath moving from your belly and expanding around your spine. Walk your feet up to your hands as you inhale, forward bend as you exhale, forward fold Uttanasana. Inhale, reach up, Urdhva Hastasana, coming back up to standing pose. Release your arms, Samastitihi. We'll continue to warm up with Sun Salutation seat. Inhale, reach up, Urdhva Hastasana. Fold as you exhale, Uttanasana. Step your left leg back and lower your left knee down. Use your exhale to set it up so that when you inhale, you can lift your chest, lift your back, lift your arms, and press firm into the center of your right heel. Replace your hands back down to the floor and step back into downward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Inhale forward into plank pose, but take your knees down for a modified plank. And then bend your elbows and tap your chest and chin for 8-limb pose, Ashtangasana. Point your toes back. Inhale, slide into cobra. Open your chest. Exhale, roll over your knees, tuck your toes. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Next, you'll step your left foot forward and lower your right knee down. Anjaneyasana, low lunge. So use your inhale here to sweep up. Use your exhale to set it up. And take as many rounds of breath as you need to set it up. When you're exhaling, finishing up that pose, place your hands down on the floor, step your right foot up, right into a fold exhale. Inhale, unfold, use your back muscles, press into your feet and stretch your arms up and even look up if you want. Release your arms to side standing pose, Samastitihi. Inhale, reach your arms. Fold as you exhale, Uttanasana. This time, step your right foot back and keep your right knee high. So it's lifted, so it's a high lunge. Press down to the center of your left heel. Lift up through the center of your right heel. Big inhale here to open, maybe even challenge your balance by looking up. Use your exhale to slowly place your hands back down on the floor, connect to all of your digits, and then step back downward facing dog. Again, we'll take that chaturanga, taking 8-limb pose, knees, chest, chin. Push through with your hips and open your chest, Cobra, Bhujangasana. Your inhale. On your exhale, power up and back, downward facing dog, powering on your thighs and your calf muscles even. Power up your arms as well. We're going to step the right foot to the top of your mat next for that high lunge. So getting the second side in here. Lift your left heel and drive down through the center of your right heel. Lift your arms. Press your knees apart and lift your chest. Look up. Exhale, hands to your mat and step up with your left leg. Uttanasana, forward bend. Big inhale, big lift, big back engagement. Reach up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Samastitihi, standing pose. And to continue warming up, we'll move on to Sun Salutation B. So go ahead and reach your arms and bend your knees. Fierce pose, Utkatasana. Take your next exhale into a forward bend. Once your hands land down, start to straighten out your legs. Exhale, forward fold. Step back into plank pose. Inhale. Take your chest through your shoulders. As you exhale, bend your elbows, lower your hips, and then belly button. And then take those hips and belly button through and up. Inhale, chest up, cobra or up dog. Roll back over your toes. Exhale, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Right foot to the top of your mat for warrior one. And then your left heel down on the floor at an angle. So your left heel is the farthest point behind you. Bend your right knee forward, reach your arms up, and maybe even look up here if the neck will allow that. Exhale as you place your hands back down on your mat. Let's come into side plank actually. So left hand, left foot, just the left hand on the mat. And then your right foot can act as a kickstand here, or it can slide up on top of your left leg. You can look up to your right hand. You can look down to your left hand. Big breath here. And then step that right foot behind your left leg. Press your hips up. Wild thing. And just enjoy a couple breaths there in wild thing to start to open up your hips a little bit more. There's that movement and that stretch in the hips. Take it back over into plank pose. Down dog first if you need a moment to ground. And then exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Use your exhale to fire up the core and press your hips up and back. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. We'll step the left foot forward for the second side. Warrior one. Left foot up, top of your mat, right heel down. Again, the right heel is the farthest point behind you. And then bend that left knee forward as you reach your arms up. Sink your hips even. So they're sinking evenly down, not squaring to the front of the room. As you exhale, right hand to the mat for that side plank. So you might need to take that left foot over for that kickstand again first, just to situate. Try to resist lifting your hip up too high. So drive your right hip down to the floor as you lift the outer right ankle bone. Step your left foot back on top of your right if you're taking the next progression. And then maybe look up over your left hand to the ceiling. Okay, left foot behind. Inhale, press your hips up. Push your hips up now. So this you are opening. Little back bend. And with your next exhale, look back down to your right hand and you can turn back over to plank pose or yet again, downward facing dog to ground. Chaturanga, right into that big inhale for a nice smooth back bend. Open your chest. Up dog. Exhale. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Draw a few rounds of breath in here from your belly, wrapping the breath around your spine. Out through your arms, down through your feet. You can feel the energy and the effects of your breath. Notice the grounding that you feel under your hands and feet here before you step up or hop up into a forward bend. So once the feet leave the floor, there's a little bit of, lightness there, a lot of lightness, and then regrounding in that forward bend. Chair or fierce pose. Inhale, bend your knees. Reach your arms. And then stand, straight legs, release your arms to your side. Okay, step back with your right foot into a wide leg stance. Interlace your fingers behind your back. Inhale and forward bend. Exhale, Prasarita Padottanasana C. And drop your hands down towards the floor overhead. You can have your feet a little farther apart or a little closer. Play with it here. And then at any point, if the shoulders feel like they're too tight or being pinched or the elbows are pinching, you can take your hands down to the floor and switch up a different hand placement for this pose. You could grab your feet. You could take your hands out and just let them just kind of flop out to the sides. Flip your palms up if you want to give your wrist a break. Whatever you're doing with your hands, though, you're pressing down into both of your feet equally. So the feet are pressing the floor away. And this is going to prepare those legs for your next few standing poses. So inhale, half lift. And then we're going to turn to the right. So over your right leg, you're going to spin your torso. Left heel falls back a little farther. Both legs are straight if you can. And then fold out over your right leg. Use blocks here or any other support that you have to raise the floor up a little higher to be easier to get your hands there, really. So what we want to do is lengthen the spine, not necessarily fold out over the right leg. So putting your hands on a block or a couple stools or a chair will help. Activate your spinal muscles, though, and stretch your spine tall. And then drive back through that left heel. Bend your right knee. And lift your head up, lift your arms up, Warrior One, Virabhadrasana A. Keep the left thigh fired up so the left knee stays straight. The left glutes are working to extend the front of your left hip. And then power up the front of the right thigh. You're flexing your right hip. We're going to move into triangle next, Trikonasana. Start to straighten out your right leg. Open your arms, inhale, and exhale, side bend down to your right shin with your right hand. Left arm up to the ceiling. Keep squeezing the two front hip bones toward the belly button so that your hips aren't really turning open here. You're rotating at your torso. You're rotating on the spine. So driving down through your left heel, squeeze your right thigh, pull the right knee up. Your right hand could be on your right shin or a block or hooking your right big toe. Inhale, bend your right knee to press to stand. And then we're going to fold back down into Prasarita Padottanasana. And this time I'm going to take the B variation with my hands on my hips, elbows moving together. So when I forward fold, the elbows are squeezing toward each other, and the elbows eventually point in the same direction as your toes. Again, remember to power down through those feet and press into the floor equally with both feet. You're using more of your core here, more of the front thighs, and more of your front hips to create a forward bend rather than your hands helping to pull you in, or the arms as weight to help lever you down or weigh you down. Okay, half lift, inhale, walk over to the left foot this time and let the right heel turn back. So the right heel drives back behind, kind of rotates back. Lengthen, use your back muscles here to open your chest. So you can exhale long out over your left leg rather than short down into the leg. So you're not trying to shorten the front of your spine, you're trying to lengthen the front of your spine. Use your breaths to create some waving action as well. Push into your left foot so you can press the left hip up to the ceiling and play around here. Notice if you over round or over arch. And then again, power up the back heel because we're going to move this into warrior one. So right away, right thigh strengthens, right heel drives back. Start to bend your left knee and then inhale with your back muscles. Lift your head up, lift your shoulders up. When your balance and your footing feels steady, reach your arms up to the ceiling. Bend the left knee forward, but drive straight down into that left heel so you can feel the vertical line of your left shin. Your arms are strong, your triceps are strong, pressing your elbows to straight. And then we'll move into triangle pose next. Straighten out your left leg, open your arms, and lean out over your left leg down to the left shin with your left hand. So it's more of a side bend rather than a side lean. So you're going to stretch your left arm forward rather than your left side of your torso. The left side of your torso just stays long and straight. Not really straight, but just long. And we want to cinch down on the right ribs so there's not an over rounding in the right side, and that'll help keep your left side ribs spaced out, nice and spacious. Again, you're squeezing those two hips together so that your hips aren't falling open, and you're providing a spinal rotation instead of a hip opening. Rebend the left knee to come up to stand as you inhale. That'll help with balance. Bend your knees as you take your heels in and your toes point out. And when you bend your knees, you only bend your knees so that your hips come down slightly above knee height, not necessarily parallel. You can rest your hands on your thighs here. You can rest your elbows on your thighs. Or you could slide your hands all the way down to your inner ankles and use your elbows to gently press the knees open a little bit. And again, lengthen out your torso. Keep pressing the knees away from each other, but only as far as the toes are pointing. So try not to point your knees out any farther than the second toe of the respective foot. All right, forward fold. Turn your heels back out behind your toes. Prasarita Padottanasana. Good, and then take your feet together. We're going to squat down into Malasana, garland pose. You can open up your knees and roll down inside your thighs. Your big toes are touching if they can. Heels are together if they can. And if your heels are not on the floor, that is absolutely fine. You can round out here and really fold down. Keep your hands on the floor for balance, or if you'd like, you can wrap your hands around your heels. Hips drop, head drops. Feel the stretch in your back. And there is a bit of an opening here in the knees to provide a wonderful hip opening, but again, without rotating the hips, just like in triangle pose. It's a wonderful inner hip opening. We're going to move next into Crane Bakasana, which is an arm balance. So you could keep your feet on the floor here and simply work the weight moving forward and back. Otherwise, knees up on the backs of your arms, big toes touch, and try to straighten out your arms and round your back, drop your butt. So the arms are not bent like chaturanga. You're trying to actually push the arms straight. Hop your feet out then. Step out, back into wide leg forward bend. And just rest here for a moment. Brief little stretch. Good. Another couple standing poses to work on here. So we're going to come back up into that half lift and start to turn your right toes open. We're going to come back into warrior 2. So pivot on the right foot. So the right knee bends in the direction of the second right toe. Left heel again pushes back behind you. Warrior 1 on your right side. So the right leg is your front leg. Lift your arms. Left leg is your back leg. Strong left glutes. Strong left front thigh. Then lift your left heel and fire up your calf muscles. So you've just rolled over to your left toes, lifting the heel, making this high lunge, and then twisting to the right. Left elbow hooks on the outside of your right thigh. Keep that left thigh squeezing up and your right sit bone pushing down. Open your chest through your shoulders. So you're again rolling on your spine, rotating on the axis. Inhale, untwist. High lunge, back to center, standing wide leg. Fold, exhale, Prasarita Padottanasana. Take a breath or two here, and then on your next inhale, we're going to start to walk it off to the left. So you're going to spin your left toes to point straight to the end of your mat. The right heel pushes back, left knee bends so that, again, you can feel the vertical line of your left shin. Really fire up those right glutes here. Press the right heel back even more. Lift your chest, but maybe lift your gaze. And the gaze could simply just be the eyes. It's not necessarily the head. It's your eyes looking up. Okay, slowly roll over to those toes. So you're just lifting the right heel up. Then you feel your right hip turn forward slightly so that you can hook your right elbow on the outside of your left thigh. And your hips won't rotate any more than they need to, simply just to lean forward and twist. Keep the hips level. So if you can, push the left sit bone down and lift the right thigh up higher. And then drive straight down through that left heel as you stretch your chest towards your chin, towards your forehead, towards the top of your head. Good. Inhale, really drive down that left heel, high lunge, and then again, turn and face the wide side of your mat. Step forward up into Prasarita Padottanasana. So up into standing pose, Samastitihi. So we just had that wide leg stance for a moment to balance and then step forward, top of the mat. All right, inhale, reach your arms, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, forward bend, Uttanasana. You can take a half lift here, and then you can shoot back chaturanga or step back into plank pose. Inhale to the tops of your feet for a back bend, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, up and back, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Feel that breath moving in and out of your nose. Easy, natural breath here. We're going to come up and do some standing balancing poses. So when you're ready, step or hop forward. Fold, exhale. From Uttanasana, inhale, unfold, reach up. Urdhva Hastasana, upward hand pose. Exhale, standing Samastitihi. The first balancing pose will be the number 4 crossing of your right ankle over your left thigh. Left knee is bending like fierce pose. Right knee is rolling open. The right ankle is flexed. So pull your right toes up towards your shin and then press out through the big toe mound of your right foot. Press out through the right knee and sit towards your left heel with your left sit bone a little bit more. Your torso is leaning forward and just kind of leaning out like a 45-degree angle there. Okay, press up to stand. Lift your right knee up to your chest. Feel the left side, left leg very strong. As you start to roll on your left hip, press your right leg back, warrior 3. It will help with balance here if you take your right arm forward and stretch forward with your right hand to help counterbalance that weight shift. Left hand could stretch back, or it could stretch forward with the right hand. Virabhadrasana C. So really feel that left leg fired up, especially the glutes and the hamstrings. Stand next to your left foot with your right foot as you bend both knees. Utkatasana, fierce. Exhale, forward bend, Uttanasana. Straighten out the legs once your hands land and fold. You can take another chaturanga here. You can skip it and just enjoy a rest. Half lift if you're going to shoot back. Step back plank pose if you're not going to shoot back. Inhale and exhale chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Downward facing dog with your exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And take a few moments here, catch a couple breaths. Use your next inhale to step up or float up. Forward bend, exhale, Uttanasana. Press into your feet. Use your back muscles. Inhale, reach up, Urdhva Hastasana, upward hand pose. Samastitihi, exhale, standing pose. Second side. Take a moment, find your balance. All right, so this time the left ankle is going to cross over your right thigh as you bend your right knee. Remember to flex your left ankle. Push out through the sole of your left foot like you're standing on the wall, on the side wall. And then point your left knee out towards the other side wall. Sit back with your hips and extend your chest forward. And then bend that right knee over your ankle. All right, so this is the warm up for warrior 3, getting that right leg nice and strong. And then push through your right foot so you can straighten back up, pull your left knee up to your chest, and you're going to take that left leg back now. Again, if you need that counterbalance, take the left hand forward. Drop your head down, hopefully as low as your hips. It's kind of challenging to do that. You can keep a nice little bend in your low back. It definitely is a low back bend here. You're extending your left leg, so there has to be a back bend. And if your arms are both forward, there's a spinal extension. Really strong glutes, though, of that left leg. And then really feel the right leg firing up. Bend your right knee. Step next to your right foot with your left foot. Fierce pose, Utkatasana. Fold, exhale, Uttanasana. And actually don't fold Uttanasana. Sit down and squat. I lied. And then come all the way down to your bottom. Bound angle, Baddha Konasana. Feet together. Draw those heels in towards your groin and stretch your chest over your toes. You can gently push your knees down, but not using your elbows, more of the outer hips and the abductors and the rotators. So using the outer hips, the piriformis, and pressing the outer legs down towards the floor. You can use your hands on your feet to help pull your chest forward if your hands need to help. Otherwise, you can simply stretch your arms forward and bow in. All right, take this back up to seated. Pull your knees in. Give yourself a gentle little hug. We're going to take this into a wide angle forward bend. Upavishta Konasana. Let your legs come out wide and only as wide as you can still have an angle, so this does not need to be center split. Press out through the center of your feet. Press out through the inner feet even. You can remain upright here with your hands behind. Sometimes that's just good enough of a stretch here and it feels great. It's just fine. And then other days, it feels like you can lean out and walk forward. Let your pelvis rotate here so you are anteriorly tilting your pelvis with the pubic bone moving down towards the floor and your sit bone stretching behind you. You can take your hands to your feet, chest to the block or floor or stool. If you have anything handy there you can lay on. Keep your thighs engaged. Keep your feet active so the feet are pressing through the center inner arches, the ball of the foot and the heel of the foot. So the inner arches are active. You're pushing out through the bones of the feet. All right, we're going to come up out of this nice and slow. You can use hands on the floor to pull up, push up, pull your legs back in. And then we're going to roll down into shoulder stand. So if you feel like shoulder stand is tough for you, you can definitely use momentum. Just be careful with that and don't go too far or too fast. You might do a backward somersault and that's okay. I mean, if it's okay for your body, do it. Be careful. Shoulder stand, Salam Sarvangasana, elbows on the floor. Walk your hands up your back as high as you can and take your feet straight up to the ceiling. Engage your thighs and press your knees to straight. So try to get your heels back over your sit bones or back over your glutes a little bit more and take more weight into your hands. After you're there for a moment or two, you might feel more space in your shoulders. You might feel more space in your back, and then you can walk your elbows a little closer and walk your hands up a little higher. But keep the legs strong. Point them up to the ceiling. Focus on your breath moving steadily in and out of your nose from your belly. You might even just watch your belly pump the breath. And then toes overhead, plow pose, halasana. You can interlace your fingers behind you. Press your elbows and wrists to the floor. Keep your legs strong though, so the thighs are still straightening out your knees. Keep breathing here, that steady breath. So the belly pumping here, still even in the forward bend. It feels a little bit more restricted, but focus on elongating the breath. All right, unlace your fingers if you've got that mudra behind you. Plant your palms and roll down to your hips. And you can take your feet to the floor here. We're going to move into bridge or Urdhva Dhanurasana, upward bow. So either bridge, Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, or an upward bow shape. So this is bridge right here, shoulders on the floor. Your arms can reach above head, or you can put your palms on the floor, come up to the top of your head there and just stay there. If your wrists are hurting, put your fingertips on the floor. Otherwise, flatten your palms, straighten your arms, and push your shoulders back over your wrists. You can lift your heels here. You can turn your toes out. Do the things that make this pose pleasant for your body and not painful. And it'll give you a great feeling of a back bend here. All right, chin to chest. Rebend your elbows, lower back down nice and slow. Take your legs straight out. And then you can reach your arms above head after a moment here, just to stabilize your back, legs out in front of you, arms above head. Right, curl up, roll up, sit up, big pull up. Exhale, forward bend, Paschimottanasana. And let your back relax here. Keep pressing out through your feet. Keep engagement in your thighs so you can feel your knees straighten out. And again, just like the wide leg forward bend, allow your pelvis to rotate, the sit bones stretching back behind you as your forehead moves forward towards your toes. With your inhale, come back up to seated. And then you can come back down into the middle of your mat. We're going to set up for headstand Shirshasana, Salam Shirshasana, so supported headstand. Set up your elbows on the floor, interlace your fingers, top of your head on the floor. If you're not putting head on the floor, dolphin pose. So dolphin pose is basically downward facing dog on your elbows. And if you're taking headstand at the wall, find a wall space to set up in front of. You can lift one leg or both legs, feet up to the ceiling for 10 breaths. If you're taking one leg up, hold one leg for 5 and the other leg for 5. Push down into your elbows and press up with your feet. And if you feel a little wobble, you got to engage your core and you've got to push down into your elbows. My elbows were too far apart, so I had to move my right elbow in a little bit. And so if you feel like you need to position your elbows, come down to the floor with your feet and set it back up. You can feel your head on the floor, but not the weight dropping down into your head. Use your neck muscles to push the floor away and get taller in your spine. After about 10 breaths here, take this into a staff shape. So a staff in headstand, Dandasana, and Shirshasana. And if you're at the wall, let your hips touch back on the wall. If you've got one leg up to the ceiling, you can play with lowering that leg halfway or a little lower, or even just lifting the toes off the floor. 10 breaths here, or if you've got a one leg staff position, 5 breaths each leg. Lower down slowly, knees to the floor, child's pose, hips to heels, rest your forehead on the floor. Focus on that breath here, moving from your belly into your back and expanding your back ribs. All right, take just as long as you need here. When you're ready, come back up into table plank pose. Chaturanga exhale. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale back through downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And then we're going to move into those hips again, a little bit more of the stretch. So you can step up and come to seated, you can kneel and come to seated, or you can jump through into a seated position. We're going to move into a half lotus forward bend, Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana. We can start with that number 4 shape with your right ankle over your left thigh. If half lotus hurts your knee, take the ankle over your left thigh and forward fold there. And then if that's feeling okay, you can start to grab under your heel, under your shin, and pull the heel up towards your left hip bone. And the knee moves in, so your right knee moves in towards the left knee. If you're going to bind, right hand can come around your back and catch your right foot. Exhale as you fold out over your left leg. Same thing as all the other forward bends. Let the hips rotate and let the sit bone stretch back behind you. And keep your left foot active, pressing through the left foot. In this pose, be careful not to contract the left thigh. It'll start to cramp up. Your left hip flexors will start to cramp up. So try to relax the top of your left leg and press out through the bottom of your left foot instead. And follow your breath here. Big breath in and out of your nose. Smooth the breath out. And let it be calming. And, tracking your mind. So focusing your mind. Inhale with your breath to lift up. And we'll take this into Agni Stambhasana, The right foot can slide down a little bit, and then your left heel comes up under your right knee for the fire log pose. You could have your shin on top, the right leg could stay on top, or you could set it down in front. Sometimes just forward bending, again, giving that hip rotation will help move the femurs and reduce the knee pain. So sometimes when you forward bend, you get more space. Also, sometimes when you forward bend, it hurts more. So just check out how it works for your body. Everybody's different because of different bone shapes and sizes. So you don't have to forward bend. You can stay seated upright if that feels better. Flex your ankles here though, really pressing out through the center of the heel and the ball of the foot. This helps prevent sickling in the ankles, which helps to eliminate knee pain. This one can be a little bit sticky, so if you're feeling a little fidgety or impatient here, that's fine. It's completely normal. Use your breath again to focus your mind and bring it back, from that, how long are we going to be here? Oh, this is killing me. Oh, this feels good. Oh, it doesn't feel good. That stuff likes to come up in these hip openers. All right, back up through seated on your inhale. And pause there for just a moment to let the bones resettle, let the joints resettle. And then we're going to move this into a twist. So you can pull that left heel now up around your right hip. And your right foot goes on the floor on the outside of your left thigh. Wiggle your right foot forward until you can get the foot flat on the floor and all 10 toes pressing out into the mat. Hook with your left arm around your right thigh and your right hand behind you. You can stay here with a hook or even hug your knee with your left arm. If you want to work the classical bind, you will take your left hand on the outside of your right leg, reach in front of your shin to hook your fingers on the inner arches of your right foot. Then your right hand would wrap around your left hip, waist, and maybe even grab the inner left thigh. So you could hook your fingers on the inner left thigh. This is really going to help you understand that this is all core and your arms are not really levers in this pose. It's the core lifting up and rotating the spine. And so it's those deep core muscles attached to your spine that are working here. Okay, inhale to untwist. Very slowly come out of it. One more pose here. Gomukhasana, cow stretch. You can start to pull the right leg over even more now, the right foot, so that you can stack the knees up in a shoelace style pose and fold out over your knees. Lift the outer ankle bones of each foot up off the floor to fire up those outer hips a little bit more. And if rounding down is really putting too much pressure on your hips, you can walk your arms forward and extend out instead of downward folding, lengthen out. And using your hands on the floor will help push your hips back as well. So if you feel your hips lifting up, use your hands on the floor to drive the hips back down. Okay, inhale, come back up to seated. Unwrap your legs out of that nice and slow. You can lean back into your hands to do that. And straighten out your right leg this time, crossing your left ankle over your right thigh, preparing your half lotus. And if you know you don't do half lotus on this side, be happy with that number 4 shape, the ankle cross. If you feel like you could move into something closer to half lotus, it doesn't have to be a full-blown hip to heel to hip pose. You could take your heel up just slightly higher. So just start to sneak your left heel up your right thigh a little higher. If you combine left hand around to the left foot, and then your right hand stretches down towards your right toes, right ankle, and you can fold, exhale. Notice where you can soften into this a little bit more. Be aware of anything that's overworking and cramping and becoming dominant in this. So we want to feel more balanced in our work here. So it's not just the right thigh or just the core working. A lot of things working here, a lot of things opening. And you got to breathe between those two areas, the spaces that are working and opening, to help balance out the effort and the ease. And as you inhale, you can start to come back up to seated. Letting go of that bind if you had the bind in your half lotus. And you can take your left ankle down closer to the knee here. We'll move into that double pigeon, Agni Stambhasan. Pull your right foot up now closer to the left knee. And if keeping the knee on top, the left ankle on top of the right knee is too much pain in that left knee, you can take the left foot down to the floor. And sometimes it's nice just to sit here and let the left knee drop. Please don't force the left knee down. That will definitely not feel good. And again, you might notice if you forward bend, the hips rotate and the thighs open a little bit more. Keep the ankles flexed. And at any point, if it becomes too intense, go ahead and drop the left shin down to the floor in front of the right shin. Press your sit bones back. Feel your breath moving in and around three-dimensionally. So you can feel this breath moving all around your torso, front to back, side to side. You can slowly start to take your hands back to the floor and work your way back up to a seated position. Pause there for just a moment. All right, let's take this into that half lord of the fishes, Ardha Matsyendrasana, the twist. Left foot to the floor, outside of your right thigh. Wrap the right heel up around your left hip. Hook with your right elbow or hug with your right elbow. Left hand can come back to the floor or block. Press into your left foot and the sit bones. And then also the top of your right foot. Your right toes are pointing back and you're kind of rolling over under the top of your right foot. All right, so if you want to hook your right shoulder, take your right hand around to the inside of your left arches and then your left hand around to the right thigh. And maybe it just hooks your waist. Keep opening your shoulders, pressing your collarbones away from each other, and zip in and up through that core. So again, you can feel those deep core muscles, the ones attached to your spine. They are rotating this twist open. They're also giving you height, taller spine. When you're ready to come out of it, slowly unwrap and unhook if you have any kind of a bind set up. And then when you come back to front facing, we'll take this into Gomukhasana, cow face. So you're going to take your left foot over now a little bit more to the right hip. So start sliding that left foot up the outer right thigh, up towards your right hip. Knees eventually will line up. They don't have to be perfectly lined up to start. Please don't force it. And then forward bend. Great modification here, if this is really not okay for your hips, is just to kind of let the left ankle come over the top of your right thigh. Very similar to that number 4 shape that we've been doing. You'll still feel a hip stretch. All right, so you can again stretch your arms forward and kind of just push back. That helps drive your hips back. Because after a few moments in this pose, you start to feel some space and then a little tilting. Okay, walk back up to seated, lean back into your hands and unwrap your legs. And then we're going to come into a reclining position for the last few stretches here. Supta Padangusthasana, supine thumb to big toe pose. Straighten out your left leg. Once you get comfortable, straighten out your right leg and your left leg. And then press the right foot up to the ceiling. Lift your right leg up. Okay, so to start, you might interlace your hands behind your thigh. You might interlace your hands behind your calf. Maybe you want your hands to the foot. Keep pressing out through your left leg. If you want to hook your big toe with your fingers, you can. I actually prefer to interlace my hands behind my ankle. And instead of pulling the foot down to my face, it's almost like I'm trying to stretch the heel up and back to the top corner of the room, like up to the ceiling. So I'm pressing my foot up and away from the right sit bone, keeping a diagonal line there. We're going to switch this up now to B. So this was A. We're moving into B, Supta Padangusthasana, B, with your foot coming out to the side. So you can grab the foot, big toe. I like to reach in and grab the heel and just kind of point the toes down to the floor. Try to keep your left glutes on the floor, not necessarily the left sit bone, but as long as your glutes are engaged, keeping your left hip extended, you can just kind of push the glutes down to the floor. The left arm can help stretch out to the side and help to anchor. Okay, take your right foot back up to the ceiling. Go ahead and switch hands on your leg. So your left hand now to the outside of your right foot, pulling that hip over. Let your hips roll open this time. Come to the outside of your left foot, so the left toes point out. Let your right shoulder roll up as much as you need. Most of your weight is in your left hip and your left shoulder. And then you're pushing the right sit bone down towards your left foot as you're using your left hand to kind of pull your right foot up a little higher. That creates a nice iliotibial tract stretch there. IT band. And lift your right foot back up, and you can squeeze your right knee into your chest once you get your leg back up neutral. And switch sides. Take the right leg straight out here. Pause for just a moment though. So back into a supine position with both legs out straight. Just kind of let the legs settle. Let the back line settle of that right leg. And then your left leg up. And we'll start with Supta Padangusthasana A. Reaching straight up for your foot or your leg. You can interlace your fingers again behind your thigh or your calf. Keep pressing down through the right heel and out through the sole of your right foot. Notice your shoulder blades. They're nice and smooth on the floor, so they're not flattening, they're not pulling in, they're not popping off your back. They're just smooth on the floor. And then take your setup here that you like with this reclining one leg forward bend. So again, I'm going to interlace my hands on the back of my leg and just kind of push the heel up and back away from the left sit bone. So it sounds gross, but it's almost like I'm trying to pull my leg out. Like if I were a Barbie doll, I'd pop my leg out of the thing, out of the joint. Don't want to do that, but that's just kind of the direction that I'm going for. And then we'll switch it up to B, Supta Padangusthasana B. Left hand to your foot, and you can start to open your left foot out to the side. So abduction and external rotation. So your legs are creating a really cool diagonal line here. Use your right glutes to extend the right hip and press the right glutes to the floor. Also, again, like I said before, I like to take my left hand on the inside of my heel and point my toes down. Do what you need to do and what feels good for your body. You can use your right arm to open out to the side and help anchor. And keep your breath moving from your belly in and up. You can feel your back ribs press into the floor with your breath. Be careful when you come back up, not to just let the weight drop down into your right leg. So keep the right leg strong and lift your left leg up with controlled movement. Then we switch to the twist, and this is the C version of this. So Supta Padangusthasana C. Right hand to your left foot, and then roll over to your right hip. Let the left hip come up. You'll feel your right leg roll out to the side, so your toes are pointing to the side. And again, most of your weight here is in your right shoulder and your right hip. Where your head goes is really up to you. It's your personal preference. If you want your gaze off to the side or up to the ceiling, you might even just close your eyes down here and let your head roll where it needs to roll. Anchor out with your left arm, even if your left shoulder is not on the floor. And press your chest up to the ceiling. Slowly roll back over to your hips and your left leg back up to the ceiling. Once you're back level on the back of your pelvis, pull your left knee into your chest. Give yourself a squeeze. And then again, let your left leg and your right leg both lengthen out on the floor and rest on your back here for just a moment. Right hand to belly, left hand to heart, and feel your breath moving between those two areas. Physically, you'll feel the breath moving between those two areas. Energetically, you'll feel it moving beyond, maybe even out through your feet and up through your head. Moving through all the surfaces and planes of your body, noticing the front and the back, right and left, top and bottom. Just take a few moments here to allow your glutes to relax and your legs to relax, your face, head, and shoulders. And when it feels natural, just let your arms relax to your side and set up for Shavasana. If you prefer to end your practice in a seated meditation, you can come up to a comfortable seat. But wherever you land, give yourself time to check in and really be aware of how you feel. Just noticing simple sensations without names or labels or analyzing or without fixing. Be content with where you are and have a happy Shavasana.